This just in, the Minneapolis trans school shooter had confessed he was tired of being trans and wished he never brainwashed himself. And also, the demographic with by far the most mass shooters is the trans community. There's a lot to get into here. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend. This is where we call out lies, hypocrisy, corruption, and help spread the light of truth and freedom because truth conquers. And of course, on topics like this, there's forces that try to suppress the truth. Like if you remember the Nashville shooter, trans and the media and people that control the media tried to keep that down. But the truth is out of the bag and the truth needs to spread because there is an underlying problem here. And the problem is not only not being addressed, the problem is being made worse and people are getting hurt as a result of it. I think only the truth can set us free. So just released the Minneapolis school shooter, who, by the way, we're not going to cover the details of that. This absolutely insane, sick, disgusting person who took their own life. I'm not sad about that. He killed multiple children, adults at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. So details, I'm not here to give you those disgusting, gory things, but I am here to discuss the couple issues I mentioned. So it just came out, the Minneapolis trans, we can't stress that enough, trans school shooter, don't even care about his stupid name, confessed he was tired of being trans and also said in his manifesto, "I wish I never brainwashed myself." Now, this, of course, is speech that the trans community would excommunicate people about. You know, the cult, whoever the cult leaders are. I don't even know if they're trans or probably not. They're probably in some deep CIA office for all I know. But if someone were to actually say, you know what, I am tired of being trans, which is kind of another way of saying I'm actually not trans. I thought I was. But that gets you blacklisted. You're canceled. You're not only not in the community anymore, the community behaves like cancer and starts to eat you. And then also interesting that words in the manifesto were used, brainwashed. I wish I never brainwashed myself. That would imply what you and I have known all along as the truth, which is, wow, how common, 2020, the amount of trans kids went up by 10,000x. Why? All of a sudden right then, why? Well, because there's brainwashing involved. And I do think the most devious form of brainwashing that is involved is the brainwashing people do with themselves. They essentially get brainwashed into saying, yes, this is the propaganda, that's true, okay. And then they tell it to themselves over and over and over again. And it takes the external brainwashers, the media, Hollywood, and other little pockets of propaganda to get people, okay, here's what I should wash my brain with. So this person admits they were brainwashed. So to say that this person was disenfranchised with himself because of his trans identity, that's super safe to say. And does that then motivate a very misdirected form of anger in the form of homicidal violence towards other people, children? Maybe, but it's like, whoa, that's like a real big possibility, maybe. And then in the name of spreading truth on the topic, which people are more freely talking about now, in fact, really freely, whereas in even a few years ago, like the backlash for saying things like, gosh, a lot of these mass shooters are trans. I mean, there's just hell to pay. But now I do think the truth has more momentum than the propaganda that's trying to kill the truth. So I start seeing things like this all over Twitter. This is from Libs of TikTok, going through the different mass shooting events in recent history and telling you which part of the LGBTQ cult they identify with. Minnesota church shooting just recently, trans, Republican Party firebombing, gender fluid, Nashville shooter, trans, Colorado Tesla arsonist, trans, Colorado Springs shooter, non-binary, Aberdeen shooter, trans, Denver school shooter, trans, Iowa school shooter, trans, and gender fluid, multitasking, AMC stabber, trans. Are you starting to see a pattern here? It's an epidemic. And here you can see some faces with the pattern. And then you start thinking like, gosh, even though I know there's brainwashing involved with this cult, still that cult, people who identify as members of this cult, whether they're the T, the Q, the two-spirit, they're gender fluid, they're non-binary, that's still such a very small percentage of our population. And then you start to figure out, well, that very small percentage of the population is by far doing more mass shootings than any other demographic of our population. Check this out. Patrick Bet David posted this, and he says, "We know this is the pattern. So what do we do about the issue?" So here's the pattern. Here's the statistics. These are for mass shooting rates by demographic from 2015 to 2025, with 4 or more people dying in such events. And by far, the demographic with the most mass shooters is trans/non-binary. And this is expressed, so it's 0.718. And you can see the second biggest demographic kind of surprised me. Asians, they're at 0.253 at a rate per million. So that is almost triple second place. Trans non-binary, they are in first place of the most mass shooters per demographic by almost 3x. Then you have the Asians, then you have the blacks, then you have the whites, then you have the Hispanics. Native Americans, apparently 0. Good for them. Apparently y'all are some peaceful people. That's great. Now, what the naysayers would say is, no, there's an epidemic of mass shooting with trans. That is hateful. That's uninclusive. And I would say, as you are probably already thinking, no, that's complete BS. This is the truth. Denying the truth that we see here, that wake up, by far, the most mass shootings are done by trans and so LGBTQ, heavy on the T. They by far do the most mass shootings. To deny this, that's not compassion, it's not love, it's not kindness, it's not inclusivity. It is a lie that tries to cover up a massive problem that will be perpetuated if you try to deny this. And even if it's loving, kindness, those are forms of denial. Denying this is not loving, it's not kind, it's evil. And here's the talking point propaganda expressed beautifully all in one little meme. The trans community isn't really under attack. You can try to play victim, but that's what a good perpetrator tries to do. Now, by no means am I saying all people that say they're trans, are they on the verge of doing a mass shooting? I'm saying two things. One is those who do mass shootings are 3 times more likely to be trans. And I'm saying there is a problem causing that, and that needs to be unearthed. What might that problem be? Now, Indiana Senator Jim Banks, I think, says it absolutely perfectly, simply, concisely. Here's what the problem is. When you affirm mental illness instead of treating it, people get hurt. To think you're in the wrong body, God gave you the wrong body, you're a boy, you should be a girl. The mental illness is so severe that you want to mutilate a part of your body off. And by the way, it's also severe enough that you want to celebrate that. Severe enough you hormonally alter yourself. I will say that really looks like mental illness. And instead of treating the mental illness, you affirm it. You say yes to the mental illness energy. Jim Banks is right. People get hurt. Yes, the human being there that harbors the mental illness, of course they get hurt. If someone has a disease, can you imagine cancer affirming therapy? Hey, I have cancer. What should we do for this? Should we treat the cancer? Absolutely not. That's uninclusive. What we're going to do is affirm your cancer. What's that do? Gives your cancer more power. Helps it grow. Helps it spread. Did you know cancer is a good thing? I didn't know that. So this is the best path forward for me. We're going to affirm my cancer. It's exactly what we're going to do. That would be insane. If you affirm a disease instead of treating it, the person absolutely gets hurt. And apparently a lot of other people, odds of them getting hurt go up. We'll get back to the video, but first, unless you're already independently wealthy and never have to work another day in your life, let me tell you about a game changer that I'm using personally. I Trust Capital. I Trust Capital is redefining access to digital assets with retirement and long-term wealth building solutions. That's great, but here's the deal. I care about my future in retirement, so I've had an IRA account with a traditional bank without very impressive growth, being honest. It's safe and secure, but it's never really excited me because you have a little interest working for you that's based on the value of the dollar. But inflation obviously works against that, and storing your value in US dollars is like holding an ice cube and watching it melt. Now, I've been a long-term believer in Bitcoin because it's inflation-proof, and I only see the value of it going up long-term. So when I learned that I Trust Capital offers fully compliant crypto IRA accounts, I said, I didn't know you could do that. And they said, yeah, you can. That's why we're here. And I said, you mean to tell me I can hold Bitcoin in my IRA account instead of US dollars? And they said, yes, along with 80 other cryptocurrencies and precious metals. I immediately transferred my existing IRA at my bank into my newly formed I Trust Capital IRA. And their US-based customer service was extremely helpful and made it easy because they're fully informed people who care. But I got even more excited. Here's why. Typically, when you're trading crypto, every single gain is a taxable event, but not when it's in your I Trust Capital IRA. For example, maybe you're like me and you're a believer in the long-term potential of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin hits, say, 125,000, within my account, I can sell some or all of my Bitcoin, convert that to US dollars, stays within my account, no taxes paid, and then I can use those dollars to buy back in at Bitcoin when it drops to, say, 90,000. Instead of a massive chunk being paid in taxes, that chunk stays in your account, working for you as an investment, giving you a beautiful compounding effect. I Trust Capital also offers premium custody accounts for non-retirement crypto trading with institutional level security. And that protects you from hacks, scams, and thefts that plague regular crypto exchanges. I took immediate action setting up my IRA with I Trust Capital because it makes sense to me. Maybe it does to you too. Check it out. Head to itrustcapital.com/JPSears and use promo code JPS8 for a $100 funding bonus. Now back to the video. So for those who think there's somewhere between 43, 73, or 198 million different genders, this is now in hindsight, a rather good classification of the gender chart. You have two genders, male, female, and then you have a lot of mental illness. And again, I don't say this to be mean. I say this to be truthful. And I would say denying this, based on the statistics, based on what we see with our eyes, if we're willing to believe our own senses, to deny this is mean, and it's worse than that, it's evil. So when someone is mentally ill, what do they do with themselves? How do they express the chaos of the mental illness? Well, not everybody's going to turn to violence, but potentially some within the cult. Maybe cult leaders' status, propaganda machines, people who program that, are into giving the mentally ill people ideas on how they can express the angst of their mental illness. And here you see the cover of Eugene Weekly. As the Trump administration attacks trans people, some queer folks are armed and ready to bash back. Okay, that makes sense. A lot makes sense now. By the way, we also have to notice the distorted mind control when you're dealing with someone who's mentally ill. God love them. God bless them. Dear God, please help them heal from it. So not bashing them, just acknowledging mental illness. So when you're dealing with people who are mentally ill and you routinely tell them that they are under attack, do you know Trump wants to deport you because you're trans? Did you know Trump is going to put you in jail because you're trans? Which is what some people have been told. That doesn't come from Trump. So when you're telling that to a mentally ill people that they're constantly being under attack, where's the attack? You don't trust us. You're being attacked. You put them in a fight or flight state. You make them fear for their lives. Now, when someone, especially someone who's mentally ill, fears for their lives, what might they do? Fight back with violence. If you're in a situation where you feel so attacked, fight or flight. You're most likely going to reach a point where you're willing to inflict violence because you believe your life depends on it. The attackers, I have to kill the attackers before they kill me. What if you live through that and then someone tells you, you know the attackers that you killed for self-defense before they killed you? Yeah, I remember those attackers. Well, they were never there. We told you they were there. You believed us. And you felt so threatened that you killed the attackers that were never attackers, but we told you they were. What if that's a part of this? So, in a chilling YouTube video that was taken down pretty quick after the incident, shared his handwritten manifesto on the YouTube video, and it said things like, I only keep the long hair because it is pretty much my last shred of being trans. I am tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself. The killer wrote in a scrawled, cryptic message, I can't cut my hair now as it would be an embarrassing defeat, and it might be a concerning change of character that could get me reported. It just always gets in my way. I'll probably chop it on the day of the attack. And then this sicko added, I don't want to dress girly all the time, but I guess sometimes I really like it. I know I am not a woman, but I definitely don't feel like a man. Well, it doesn't act like a man either. A man doesn't do this. So that certainly breaks the trans doctrine. This person says, yeah, I know I'm not a woman, even though he's born a boy and then pretended he was a girl. This is obviously stuff that was weighing on him. Now, remember what Patrick Bet-David said in his tweet with a shocking graph of trans do the most shootings. We know this is the pattern. The question is, what are we going to do to address the issue? Now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be doing something to address the issue. I don't think it's the whole thing by any stretch, but it is an important thing. RFK Jr. announced he has ordered a probe into the killer's potential use of gender-affirming care drugs. The health secretary told Fox and Friends an investigation would be launched to determine whether drugs the shooter may have used to transition to a woman played a role in the mass shooting. We are doing those kind of studies now, he said. We're launching studies into their potential contribution. Some of the SSRI drugs and some other psychiatric drugs might be contributing to violence, RFK adding, referring to SSRI antidepressants. Many of them have black box warnings that warn of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So we can't exclude those as a culprit, and those are the kind of studies we are doing. So look up statistics on school shooters and what percentage of them are on SSRI antidepressant drugs. Last I saw, it was almost all of them. So they're going to be investigating those SSRI drugs, according to Kennedy, but also hormonal and gender mutilation drugs, which absolutely should be looked at. But what Kennedy might not be able to look at, but for the love of God, someone figure it out. What are the influences getting into these people's minds, finding this crevice of mental illness and then preying on it? And who are the doctors that this trans school shooter was seeing that looked right at the mental illness and said, I will affirm that. You are a girl. You're a girl. Who is that doctor? And why did he look at a mental illness and choose to affirm it rather than treat it? This is the same thing as a doctor looking at cancer and saying, you got cancer. We're going to affirm this. You're not going to treat it? Absolutely not. That'd be hateful. We're going to affirm this cancer. So my hope is someone looks at the doctors that were treating all these mass shooters, all the trans people, looks at the doctors and starts asking serious questions about why are they not only ignoring mental illness, but magnifying it, affirming it. And then what else are people on the internet saying? Well, Matt Walsh has had a lot to say about the trans community for a long time, and specifically now this incident. Here's one thing. It wasn't all that long ago that anyone who identified as the opposite sex would be involuntarily committed to an insane asylum. Does anyone at this point seriously think that our current approach is an improvement? Something else Matt Walsh said, every trans person is dangerously delusional. They are all mentally sick, and doctors should be legally barred from affirming their mental illness in any way, adult or child. Everyone knows it. Now innocent children are dying because so many people were too cowardly to speak up. The left would probably hear that and say, that is very hateful. Matt Walsh, they're trans. They're not mentally ill. And I would say that appears to be a very kind thing to say. But in reality, it's not kind. It's mean, it's denial, and it's evil. And it covers up a massive problem. If you take a look at this person, just ask yourself, do they potentially express at least a thread of mental illness?
Why can't I exist as my true self right now?
That's not your true self, that's why.
This! You don't think this is my true fucking self? What the fuck is your true self? You ignorant piece of shit! Is your true self being a little who's shorter?
At the very least, we know that's not a picture of mental health. So that's the latest that we know. The trans shooter has said in his manifesto, he was tired of being trans, wished he never brainwashed himself. We know the trans shooting stats are in, and they are by far, by 3x, the biggest demographic doing mass shootings from 2015 to 2025. That's a problem, and it ain't cool to cover it up anymore. The truth shall set us free. And let me know what you think about all this in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you on our next video. Till then, stay free.